first off, I'd love to welcome you, Mo, for coming on board today, because this is so cool. I've met Mo sort of via LinkedIn and seeing all the amazing things that he's doing. So I thought I would really love to. I'd been thinking about it for a couple of months actually, and I thought, oh, he looks so busy, and I thought, nah, I'll just reach out, see if he's got a few moments to jump on, and we'll go from there. And you said yes, and I'm like, hell yeah.
Well, hell yeah, back to you, and thank you for reaching out, because yeah, people are busy, but hey, you know, how do you measure that at the end of the day? And I love talking about the stuff that I do and have done, in particular the last 2 years for an amazing charity. And yeah, any opportunity to, you know, to have an authentic conversation in and around mental health and suicide prevention. And if one word can help another individual in our community, then I'm up for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would love to hear about your story too, because from what I've seen and the way that you speak and how passionate you are, there's obviously like something behind that, right? Like that you can tell that you really feel deeply about it.
Yeah, Mandy, thank you for that. And absolutely, I'm incredibly passionate about communicating the benefits of the narrative associated with mental health and suicide prevention. And fortunate, as I said, that in the last 2 years, through a sliding door moment, as I call it, that I had the opportunity to have that conversation and explore, you know, the options of giving back to not only to an industry, but to a broader community in regards to the promotion of mental health and suicide prevention, you know, outcomes, working towards that. But yeah, so why am I so passionate about? Well, I suppose the journey started not necessarily 40 years ago, but let's just put a peg in the ground. I studied psychology, having come out of secondary schooling, where even at secondary schooling, I was always the go-to fellow for the guys that I was at school studying, and you know, if they had issues with their girlfriends in particular, or their mates, or their boyfriends, or their parents or family or whatever, it was like, oh, we'll just go and have a chat with Mo. And so that sort of introduced me to the whole idea of what it actually means to be, to be able to provide support. And that comes from within. It's not something that you learn. But that said, I then layered that with a 3-year undergrad in psychology. So graduated 82. So it is 40, what is that, 50? No, 40 years back. I don't want to show my age too much.
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Yeah, exactly. But that's where it started, where I was able to better understand the complexities associated with, with being a human being, and what that actually means, and the different models and philosophies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then through that journey, I realized that yeah, we are incredibly complicated individuals, and as such, what we see in particular is a manifestation of individuals, mindsets, and as a consequence of what we see, I use the term consequence, there may be consequences that we react to and or respond, etc. So yeah, along that journey to now has been a good 40 odd years of educating, and in one way or another being involved in this space. Probably not to the intimate extent as others, but for whatever reason, as I said, the sliding door moment 2 years back gave me an opportunity to sit firmly and squarely in the mental health space, and I'm, as I said, very appreciative. So given that context, at age 50, which was 9 years back, I literally reached a pinnacle, or what I thought was a pinnacle in my profession. I was headhunted for a role as a director role It was with the then leading employee assistance program provider nationally. The role was quite complex and incredibly challenging across a number of dimensions. And 8 months into the role, wanting to succeed, wanting to make a difference, I basically, burnt out to a level where, I was in a fetal position in the morning. I couldn't get out of that fetal position. I was incredibly overwhelmed by just the simplest of things, because life had gotten way too much. And
it's amazing how fast it can happen, right? You kind of feel like you can deal with it. I've kind of got this, and then before you know it, it's like...
You're correct, Mandy. And for me, each of the parts of the whole, I could do. There was one part in particular, and this is, again, it was a simple thing, but reporting on progress of the entity month in, month out to the CEO, who would then add it to her pack into the board for their monthly meetings. Again, it was a simple thing, but I just, I found it difficult to construct what she required. And as part of that was the reality that I hadn't been in that space 12 months beforehand. So I couldn't really compare current, service offerings to a retrospective 12-month history. So it was bizarre, but that was just one. But there were multiple things, and I won't go into the detail. Needless to say, that sense of absolute being overwhelmed led to incredible levels of anxiety, which led into what has been diagnosed as an episodial depression, which at the heart of it, unpacking it with the talk therapist at the time, was the realization that my own personal values were clashing head on with corporate values. And since then, I've had multiple conversations with peers, colleagues, C-suite, E-suite, in and around that, and how corporate cultures and value sets within that can actually impede performance and can actually be perceived as contraindicated to benefiting individuals and an organisation. So, Mandy, at the end of that 8 months of absolutely trying at a level where others would have definitely kicked the can in earlier, I realised I'm not going to be able to cope with this, and a joint decision, although push came to shove, the organisation had to let me go. At which stage I then went, well, what's next? I defined myself at that age. I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to get a job at age 50. People don't employ 50-year-olds. I mean, all this sort of nonsense, quite honestly, now at 59, looking back on it, to the fact of that depression, episodal depression, became manic, and with that, I did consider suicide, and I did have a suicide note written and the plan to execute, and that was an incredibly dark time. And by the way, I've got an incredible, amazing, loving family, incredible network of mates and close friends, etc. But when you're in that state of absolute despair, you, by nature of it, internalize a significant amount of it. You disassociate with others in society. You isolate. And for some, they just don't understand. They don't understand the process and what's happening. And so it was a really strong lesson that I learnt, and there are significant steps coming out of that to where I am now. So I can relate to it, and I hate to have taken my own life. And what I know now, and in particular around suicide prevention and the conversations that you can have and the things that you need to look out for, you know, I'm absolutely blessed that I can actually dig into that episode and be able to relate to others and be relatable to others.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, I've been through the same thing, so I know exactly what it's like. I think, you know, at that time when you're in that deep darkness, it really doesn't matter how many people are telling you that they love you and all of these things. You can have hundreds of people around you supporting you, but you can't feel that.
No.
You don't feel that in here, right? It doesn't, you still feel like you're on your own. You still feel like the anguish that you feel has such a hold over you. You can't even open yourself up to that because you're so like in here, right?
You are. Absolutely. I mean, you know, you hear of people who are in depressed states. You see people who are in depressed states. I mean, I guided, counseled, lifestyle changed, coach, whatever, mentored, whatever term you want to use, others in that situation. And to find myself in that situation, it was absolutely debilitating. But Mandy, the main thing I want to try and communicate is, for me, it was an episode, okay? And I don't live per se with depression or anxiety, although there have been episodes since then, and some really, I'll say bizarre, because the most unlikely, you know, sitting in a plane, and all of a sudden the doors close and I'm thinking, holy shit, you know, I'm in a plane and my anxiety levels just to the roof. So, you know, unfounded concept of why you feel anxious. So if I go back to that episode in particular, what I'd like to state on this podcast is that there was chemical imbalances that are occurring. My head felt like it was going to explode. I had so much noise and static electricity, you know, in the cranial space that, you know, it was so tough. It was tough to get out of bed. It was tough to, you know, to do anything because I was so fatigued. That 8 months was, I mean, I was working some incredibly late hours and long hours, and of course the emotional attachment to the work, given the delivery of services that were being provided. But, you know, the noise and literally being able to go for a walk in the morning, you know, and you hear lifestyle coaches and then others and therapists say, oh, just go for a walk. I found it very difficult to walk. I had one episode, you know, with 3 good mates who invited me to play a game of golf, 18 holes, you know, notwithstanding the number, but I just physically didn't have the energy to pull my cart around. So the rebuilding from there, which is also what I'd like to state, is it takes what I now refer to as my mantra, and that is one step at a time, one day at a time, one thought at a time, and then one action at a time. Okay, and they're the 4 pieces that I now connect. Others that I currently work with in men's mental health to say, hey, it is one step at a time. If you're thinking that you're going to take 10 steps or 10 push-ups because that's what's prescribed, good luck. You don't have the energy to be able to pull yourself up to do 10 push-ups. And here am I, ex-physiologist, exercise physiologist, where I was doing push-up challenges, you know, and have done now since, with good mates who run the push-up challenge. It's like I couldn't even do a push-up, you know, 10 seconds worth of stepping up and down, whereas I used to teach step in one of my other lives. I couldn't do it, you know. So fundamentally my core values, my core abilities, my compass that was pointing north needed to be realigned, recalibrated. And that's a whole nother piece in itself. But like that sun just peeking over or setting, let's say it's peeking over the hill there is another day. There is this sunrise that you can, you know, wake up to, that if you do follow some fundamentals that you can actually work through this as an individual.
Yes.
But then as someone helping someone else,
yes,
that, helping them unpack some of those things that they can do.
Yes.
And being consistent, being supportive is so important.
It is. And, for myself, I remember it was just, I got to have that small bit of hope.
Yep.
And once I got that small bit of hope, that started to change everything for me. And it was definitely baby steps for me.
Yeah.
I think the greatest part of having that journey for myself, I think was now, like I'm very cautious now, like I'm at reading where I'm at, and what I mean, taking care of myself, making sure I don't get too tired or exhausted. But also when I experienced brain trauma and then having to go through that, I could have easily slid back, to go back into that space again. So having gone through that actually helped me when I experienced brain trauma, you know what I mean? And knowing
absolutely
to keep an eye out for where I was at, and also to go, okay, I've felt this feeling before. And this was the feeling that I had at the beginning stages of where, when I had become suicidal, but I didn't see it for what it was at the time. Now I get to see it,
Yes. Yes. It's almost like an out-of-body experience, isn't it?
Yes.
And being able to, to reflect on that is absolutely critical. And now in particular, with I suppose my out and about with Mo and my mates, authentic conversations that I have with people, some I've known for years, others I've only just made acquaintances, that the conversation is authentic. I've always been like that, and that's in my DNA. And so when you do meet people who do respect that, and you can have that conversation and share, is incredibly powerful. And I'm very, very grateful that I've had the opportunity to do that with some amazing people. And so, at the heart of keeping an eye or a thumb on the pulse of what's happening in and around you is realizing, and I work off a very simple model of ABC. So A is the attitudes, B is the behaviors. Okay, so attitudes we can't see, B, behaviors we can, and then the C is that consequences. So if you're seeing someone act out, the consequences of that are multiple. Okay, you can react and respond accordingly, as can others, etc., etc. But unless you take the time to actually go, hey, why are you acting like this?
Yes.
And actually stop that behavior in such that you're giving, I suppose, a platform to have a conversation. The consequences can be vastly different.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we then take that ABC to then anxiety. Okay, anxiety. With some of the the men that I coach, mentoring, following this transformational weekend that I co-lead with a doctor friend of mine, I talk about anxiety, and then there's a positive, a neutral, and or a negative associated with it, like anything else. Okay, so if you're anxious about something, can you channel that feeling of anxiousness or anxiety towards something that actually is positive? So can you flip that? Okay, instead of focusing on that anxiety and going, God, I can't do this, it's overwhelming, and I'm going to step back from the situation, etc., which may be the type of who you are, and how you react and respond, so your behavior. Can you actually just be in the moment, catch your breath, and go, right, this is actually an opportunity, and that opportunity can be positive, and isn't that fantastic?
Yeah. So
just planting that seed in a couple of the guys heads, and I go, right, well, let's talk that through. what does that look like now? And you know, they say, yeah, well, yeah, I can do this. You know, you're allowing yourself to have that that positive, you know, belief that you can achieve. So Mandy, I don't know your backstory. So you mentioned head trauma. What was with the head trauma?
Well, I'd gone through an experience. Had been taking care of someone after they had come out of a mental hospital,
Right.
and they were in a really bad way, and they had gone from like extreme rage to paranoia to sobbing to it was a friend of mine. So it wasn't a client, it was just someone that I wanted to help out that no one else could help. And sort of no one really wanted to necessarily help either. And so I thought I would go and be there with them. And they ended up kind of losing the plot on me, and didn't want me to leave.
Right.
It wouldn't let me go, wanted me to go, you know, all this type of stuff. But it was they were manic, just all over the place. And it was I was there at the property for nearly a month, and I hardly slept for the whole month. I was terrified the whole time, terrified to leave because I didn't know what would happen if I left, but also terrified to stay as well. And it got pretty terrifying. And when I left there, I got out of there, and I was just I remember just thinking to myself, if I get out of here alive, I will just be so grateful. You know what I mean? Just like
I've got a second chance, basically.
And so I left there, drove 10 hours down here. So this was north. I drove 10 hours down here. Right. And I was only here a couple of days, and I started having dizzy spells and started collapsing and stuff like that, and then ended up in hospital with brain trauma.
Right. So that trauma was brought about by heightened levels of stress, anxiety, and in what physiological chemical reaction within the body because of being under that level of duress. Wow.
Yeah. So basically and I had sort of on and off, you know, over the years I'd been under a lot of stress with that person anyway. Right. And was planning to sever the ties type thing. With that. And so so I just knew there was light at the end of the tunnel, so I was just gunning it pretty much. I just thought if I can get through this, it'll be. But I think my body just said, hey, enough is enough. You just need to rest, because I had a lot of plans. I had like speaking gigs and all kinds of stuff that I had planned to go and do. And I think my body just said, you just got to rest up, Mandy, because I wouldn't have stopped. I'll be honest, I wouldn't have stopped. I would have just kept going. So
that's really interesting, and thank you for sharing that, Mandy, because if I again sort of unpack a couple of things that I was thinking through as you story told, that is one of the elements that has been brought to my attention just recently through a clinical psychologist friend of mine, Peter Slocum, and Peter and I have collaborated on an incredible mental health promotion campaign just recently, which if we've got some time I'll talk about. But one of those elements that has come out of this mental health check-in tool that Peter has created in collaboration with Jacobs Engineering is the notion of perfectionism. And perfectionism, again, if you look at the 3-point assessment that you can use, so positive, neutral, negative, as I overlaid that with anxiety. If you do that with perfectionism, well, you can have a neutral response to perfectionism. You can have an incredibly negative response to perfectionism, where, hey, is 100%, and that's perfect for some people. Is that achievable, attainable? And or if I do, is that then another 10% of that? Is that what perfection should be or would look like? And then the positive, of course, is then being aspirational, achieving and looking back over your day or over your year or over your life and going, I actually have been successful at whatever you know, I've wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
So this whole notion of perfectionism can actually, for most people, can actually be incredibly debilitating, to the extent that people won't, you know, will fear the outcome of, you know, of trying to attain this level of success or whatever it might be. And with men in particular, and I can't speak on behalf of any other gender or you know or other, because that's, you know, that's where who I am and where I've come from. But blokes in particular, you know, and this was revealed at the breakfast launch of this campaign almost, well, it was a week back. A number of the executives in the room, you know, a couple of them actually stood up and said, yeah, my perfectionism, you know, element on this assessment is high, but that's conflicting with the other elements, and that's exactly right. So if you don't have this balance between your different elements, or, you know, or whatever it is that you're assessing against, you know, whatever format or assessment tool, then you will strive towards that. And then as you're striving towards that, are you actually maintaining your mental health or your physical health or your spiritual or your emotional or your connectivity or whatever it might be? So it was really quite, you know, quite revealing, and it got a lot of people in that room just to stop and think about, okay, well, how do I demonstrate that trait of perfectionism? And in doing so, am I expecting, as a leader, am I expecting others, you know, to be on that same journey? And what happens if they're on that journey and I'm responsible for them and they're not performing? You know, it has a whole multitude of potential negative impacts, be it on self and or on others. So, so with that whole idea, and the other piece that you mentioned, this living in a space, be it with others, with your partner, with a mate, with a friend, and you're not happy or you're not satisfied in that space, or your overall level of control is external to yourself, in that another person is actually systematically taking away pieces of you, and you're at times allowing that, you know, either compromising or other as part of this relationship. But at what point do you then go, hey, enough's enough? And in your case, at what point, you know, did you say, hey, enough's enough, I'm actually stepping out of this space, toxic or terrified, as you said, to then, you know, live my own life, my own space, and you know, and recalibrate and everything else that goes with that. So was it at a point with you that you were so terrified for your own life, your own well-being, that you then went? And that's really powerful. It must have been an amazing moment in time.
Well, I mean, we were in a relationship. And I won't go into the details because he's on his journey in life, right? So I don't want to be throwing him under the bus in any.
And this is it. People are, and we've got to be respectful of that. So thank you for saying that.
And so for, you know, for him, he had battled serious, severe mental health issues for years. And you know, in his family as well, it just ran rife throughout the family. And so, you know, he didn't get the support that he needed from work. He was under extreme stress at work. And and it just got to the point where I think too, because I had, you know, I'm a coach, I had coached heaps of men before, you know, I was used to just dealing with tough situations. And you know, we had separated a couple of years beforehand, and so and it was because of that, that's how it had sort of, he was going through a lot of stuff at work and things like that, and because he actually didn't want me to go, that kind of made it worse. And so I was trying to separate myself from the property a little bit, you know what I mean, and him, and each time I did, he would get worse. And so I had just made up my mind. I was going, like there was nothing else I could do. You know, I wasn't his coach, right? So you know, we're in a, and it's not my place to coach him. You know, I can be a loving, supportive partner, but I can't be his coach. And so I knew that I had done everything that I could, and and it was because I had said, that's it. Like there's, I
you
can't,
drew a line.
Yeah, that's it. That's when he,
it's, you know, it's not dissimilar. And if I can, again, go to that positive, negative, neutral, okay? To the positive side of what you've just said there, and that is then with suicide, you know, one of the main lessons I've learned in the last 2 years, having participated and, you know, accredited, you know, assist, trained through Living Works, and obviously through mates. One of the main messages that comes out of that training is when you actually notice individuals' behaviours, changes, etc., that, you know, you ask the question, you know, are you considering suicide?
Yes.
You know, it's an incredibly powerful question to pose.
Yes.
And coming from a you know, a place of support, and obviously, you know, in this situation with a relationship, being able to ask that question allows the individual to respond, okay? And they're grateful that someone has actually taken notice or the time to stop and ask the question. And now, reflecting on Thursday being Are You OK Day, and at the heart of that is suicide prevention. It's history. That being able to ask the question, be there to support, and then work with them on, you know, on unpacking that to a certain extent. Releases this built up, you know, tension, anxiety, you know, state of depression, whatever it might be, you know, very similar to a soda ball. You shake it up and you open the lid, and everything flies out. So on this side of this conversation, there's a positive outcome. Okay. On your side of the equation, by actually setting up parameters or boundaries to the relationship and saying no more, that you actually inadvertently, you know, allowed that individual, it's a strong term, I suppose, but the individual actually then reacted and responded. You know, for all intents and purposes, that individual was containing, and you were helping him to contain by maintaining that relationship. So what I'm alluding to is absolutely, you doing what you've done is absolutely the right thing. That's without a doubt. Providing that support, then going to a point of saying, hey, enough's enough. And it is true. There's enough that an individual can do to support another individual. And the same thing with suicide. You can be there, you can provide that support, etc., etc., etc.
And I think too, for him, he was very afraid of opening up that can of worms. So you know, even though I hired people to help him and to speak with him and all kinds of stuff, and he just, you know, it was so difficult for him, and he was struggling so much because he was terrified of what would happen. You know,
the demons. Letting go of the demons, letting go of, you know, another mate of, well, Dr. Brett Deller is his name, the founder of Momentum Revolution, and that, you know, 2.5 day transformational workshops that we deliver. You know, he talks about, you know, carrying a backpack on your back through life, and all it takes is another little thing in the backpack, and it just becomes such a burden. And he also talks about sins of the father, you know, and of the grandfather and great-grandfather, you know, that at what point, men in particular, do you say, hey, enough's enough. I have got to stop this behavior, okay, from those consequences, impacts that I mentioned beforehand. Because at one stage in your life, you have to realize that you either do have a mental health issue, and that mental health issue is as a direct result of chemical, physiological imbalances in your body, and or compounded by, you know, trauma and or multiple traumas. And by releasing it, by having the support to be able to go blur, that it's a massive relief. You don't have to
Yeah.
hang on to it and then
Yeah.
keep building it and keep putting the shit in your backpack, you know, where
I know.
so with this
Yeah.
this fellow in particular, allowing him, okay, to actually you know, to vent, to show anger, to, you know, to show pain, to show everything else in a safe space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know that, you know, what the circumstance was, but
Yeah.
is absolutely again, one step at a time, that first step.
Yeah.
And it's a massive step. It's a
It is
massive step.
And I know even for him at work, you know, and even his friends were very much, you'll be right, mate, get your shit together. You know, I found, you know, for me and what I do, it was so frustrating for me, you know, and I have taken responsibility for my part in that as well, like big time, because in a way, you know, I didn't help the process. I had been his safe place, right?
Yes, of course.
To come home to, and so when, but when things started getting really bad, when I, you know, asked for, you know, said I, you know, wanted to separate, trying to get him to because I was actually very worried about him, because I could see, you know, what was happening, and he wouldn't get help, and I could see he wasn't getting help from work, and I could see the help that the kind of help that he had got had made it worse. And I was like, what are we going to do here? You know, I had so much compassion, and because I'm very compassionate when it comes to men and mental health and supporting men and helping them rise, I was like, wow, this is gonna end really, really badly if he doesn't get help. So you know, I had this struggle, right, of like,
absolutely,
you know,
understand.
I'm the partner and I'm a coach. I can't be the coach. I've just got to be the supportive partner and keep that part out of it. You know what I mean? And then just keep trying finding the help for him. And but yeah, like the help that he got just wasn't helpful. And he was so terrified of it too. He was absolutely terrified of going to that place. And because I could see it in him, like just the absolute,
the heightened levels of anxiety he would have prior to going to getting this help. That is so contraindicated. And again, I feel, because the reality is that there are, you know, we're human population. If you were slice and dice us, we've got all these different, you know, looks and feels and, you know, thoughts, attitudes, a whole thing. So you're bound to connect with people and or not. Okay. And that's the same thing with therapists or support or whatever it is. You've got to find the right space that speaks to you. And for guys in particular, and I must address that, you know, oh, you'll get over it. Well, no, you don't. No. What part of getting over being abused, be it sexually as a, you know, as a 13-year-old, you know, and I've had, you know, an individual that, you know, that revealed that at, you know, at the transformation weekend. It's like, you just sit there in the group and you think, okay, did I hear that? Yeah, I heard that. Okay, now how do you unpack that even further? Insofar as this man has actually stated this. And this man is 56 years of age, or he's 21, as was the case. Our youngest actually has been 18 to 71 has been the range of the last 2 years. And it doesn't matter how old you are, you know, except that if you're 70, you've carried this for all your life. You know, thank goodness this 18-year-old actually had a supportive environment around him of guys, of brothers now, who, you know, who sat there and went, wow, you know, how powerful is that young man to be able to sit in the group, and story tell, and feel comfortable, confident, and safe at the end of the day. So if you don't feel safe, you're not gonna reveal or release. That's without a doubt.
And I think for me, I mean, I've had, you know, especially female friends that have said, I won't swear. I usually swear.
You can. Come on.
You know, why the fuck would you still be so compassionate about helping men after this? And I said, this makes me more compassion. It makes me more fired up because, you know, it's one, you know, it helps women too, right? It's not just like, because I don't care about women. It helps women too. It helps maybe another, you know, female not have to go through this. It helps another man not go through this and not have that intense suffering and anguish for so long. And it also, you know, helps support men to catch it early, you know. And so, and even if they are finding themselves in that really deep place where they just feel like, you know, like he was, that they feel like they do have a safe place to go, that they have options, they can find somewhere where they can just
correct
you know?
absolutely look, compassion, you know, kindness, you know, all the soft things that, you know, that as human beings, forget gender, okay? As human beings is a basic tenet of life. And if you don't have compassion, and unfortunately a lot of people lose their compassion over their lifetime, you know, let's, as we are doing, let's, you know, enable a space where compassion can be shown. And it's actually authentic compassion. You know, live every day, do an act of compassion every day, you know. And I'm going to state this, but again, it's not for acknowledgement. It's just every day I do something that's compassionate. Be it open a door for someone, be it push someone's trolley, be it walk someone across a, you know, a crossing, be it, you know, wave appreciation that someone's let me in, you know, in a space on the freeway. Just a act of compassion or kindness, you know. And if you do that, and then I do that, and then, you know, 5 of our mates do that, I mean, we're going to live in a better place. And this is what it's about. So, you know, going back to recent with this campaign. So this campaign that Clinsite, mate of mine, Peter Slocum, myself, and Jacobs as the co-host, and supported by mates in Construction WA when I was you know, an advisor there with them, just recently finished, is a campaign where, by using a simple tool, now this tool IP and the whole thing has been created and is now being given to the broader community to use. You go online, you take 7 to 10 minutes to do a mental health check-in right now. And you don't need to be in a state of depression, anxiety, or, you know, have thoughts of suicide. No, it's about the here and now. Just to go, hey, I'm okay today. I'm going to do the check-in. All right. And the address for this is OML, so 1 million lives .world. Okay. And I will confirm that and send that link to you later.
Because we'll include that link with this podcast.
That will be. And again, it's not my tool. It's not, well, it's Peter created the tool with Jacobs, but Jacobs, in consultation with Peter, created this 1 million lives campaign that globally we, aka Jacobs, could actually positively impact on 1 million lives. Okay, creating a mental health checking tool, and then sharing that through their organization of, at the time, I think it was 40,000 people globally, with the understanding that if you have this and you've checked in and you've got your little dashboard and all in Sunday, which is just amazing. I mean, again, love technology, that you can actually share that. You can share that with your counsellor if you need to go, hey, this is my dashboard. This is the stuff that it's saying, perfectionism. What does that mean? And let's have a chat about that. And so as a coach, as a counsellor, as a psych, a GP, whoever, you've got actually a screening tool that you don't actually have to spend a lot of time trying to unpack. It's actually there in front of you and you can use it. It's very powerful. So then I've got this, hey, Mandy, you've done yours. Let's have a chat about what your score is, you know. And oh shit, I didn't know I demonstrated this level of, oh shit, I now understand how important sleep is. Maybe I need to think about unwinding at the end of the day by doing some breathing or meditation or exercise, or cutting out on that extra, you know, wee dram of whiskey or whatever it might be, or red wine or sparkling or other, or even green tea, because everything can be, you know, in moderation, to then go, right, well, I've shared it with you now, and Mandy, you've got 5 mates, I've got 5 mates, and they've got 5 mates, and all of a sudden this ripple effect, which is what they refer to in the in the health promotion campaign, you can reach a greater audience and provide this tool free of charge. And by the way, totally anonymous. You go online, you just put in whatever name you want and a password. There's no email, there's no phone number reference, there's no follow-up, nothing. It's just a self-help tool. And we then launched last Thursday the Mates in Construction, in partnership with 10,000 construction mental health check-ins. So we've reached out to the industry to say, hey, construction industry, who are losing a person to suicide every 2 days, okay, that there is hope and there is this tool. And by the way, when mates aren't there, or you don't feel like you want to ring a helpline because reaching for support can be bloody difficult, especially for guys. You can do this sitting on the toilet, or you can do this under a bloody tree in the park, or in your car. Before you step out of your car in your work environment, you go home, and then you're going to get all the stuff from home. Just sit in your car, just take your 5 to 7 minutes, a little bit of breathing, do the check-in, go, oh wow, okay, I'm not doing too badly. I'm okay. And that's really powerful. So we've got another 6 or 7 weeks of the campaign, and you'll see it on LinkedIn and Facebook and other that we're constantly promoting it to try and reach a broad audience, and to say, hey, it's okay. Here's a tool, you can use it. On Are You OK Day, I'm doing a presentation to my mates at Clough in the city, and I'm going to talk about the tool. I'm going to talk about some of the stuff we've spoken about today. So simple, a tool, one of the many tools in the toolkit. Hey,
that's it. I think it's good to kind of be able to know where you're at, because sometimes you don't always really know where you're at. When it's on paper, then you can go, oh wow, okay, I've been feeling a bit strange within myself, or not quite right, and not understanding it. And then at least well, I've caught this early now, I can go and do something about it.
Mandy, that is 100%. So we refer to it as being preemptive, not preventive, but preemptive. So it's before. And this is a very different space to where a lot of people operate, and they operate in this sort of reaction response. It's a medical health model to prevention, which is great, and Australia does some amazing prevention, but this is actually preemptive. So before you get to a stage where we need to now have a conversation, respectfully, you've actually done your own check-in, or you've gone online. There are there's a couple of other platforms that provide a similar support, but isn't that amazing? And then you look at it and you think, geez, sleep. I've scored on low on sleep, and I have been feeling tired. Why? And what can I do to change it? So with this check-in tool, of course, there are some Q&As and some fact sheets and stuff like that. And as I said, if you're, I'm reaching out to you, Mandy, for some life coaching, some support, I can actually say, hey, here's the tool. This is what we could talk about in this session, and would you mind? I'd like to talk about this, because it really is impacting on me, and I hadn't realized how important sleep was. But I've been really tired, and sort of falling asleep at my desk and all sorts of shit.
That's it. And not only that too, when you're under a bit of stress, or a lot of stress, however you want to class it, your mind, if your mind's going 100 miles an hour, and whether you're everyone handles it differently. So you could say generally stressed to manic or whatever. Some people are used to being in that manic state, right? So that feels normal for them. But if you're not getting sleep, your body just doesn't have that recovery time, and it's not able to heal itself. And sleep is just so important. As I said, I've been fortunate not only to study psychology, albeit a number of decades back, and I'm not a psych, and study exercise physiology, and then do some postgraduate studies in HR and risk and
occupational psych, just that whole technical journey over the last 4 decades, to be able to sort of mash it together. And every so often I put the handbrake on and I think, okay, sleep, how does it affect me physiologically? All right. So I'm going to get out of my head and I'm now going to go into my heart.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if I'm stressed, by nature of it, my heart beats faster.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not at rest, and rest, healthy male, female, around 60 beats per minute. Okay. Rest. Athletes, you can go all the way down to 35 beats, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're stressed, if your heart is beating, 10 beats more per minute, per hour, per day, how much strain are you putting on a muscle in your body? Just like your bicep or your hammy, if you're running a marathon, that's what you're doing, good people. You're running a heart marathon. Okay. Every single minute, every hour, every day of your life. So wouldn't it be great to then be able to go, right, what can I do to slow my heart rate down? To give myself a chance not to fatigue my heart, which, by the way, is the biggest muscle in the body.
And
by the way, it's
when you're under that, go for it.
No, right.
I was going to say, when you're under that pressure, it's your immune system. There's so many more things that are
correct, just
like screaming for help, right? Within your body.
Exactly. And so, going to that physiological, and because we're talking about mental health, but akin to mental health is physical health and well-being. So, okay, what can you do about your heart? Well, you can take bloody medication when you turn whatever, which thankfully I don't have to take for my heart. But you can do simple things. You can actually take that moment to catch your breath, to go in a quiet space. And you hear about, mindfulness and, breathing and, yoga and meditation, they're all terms, okay? But just strip it back to something really quite straightforward. Just catch your breath or sit in a quiet space for 5 minutes. And the benefit of that, I go back to,
it's true.
It's so true. And you're right about your liver and your kidneys and all the other vital organs. They're working overtime to try and flush your system of this toxic, residue that occurs as a direct result of your muscles tightening and being held tight. So I'm going to segue to again, one of those life moments. So I did some consulting work and ran an amazing health promotion campaign for Wesfarmers CSBP. Again, this was 20 years ago. And as part of that, I ran a corporate health program, and I had the ability to speak on a one-on-one basis with around 700 people over a period of 2 years. It was awesome. It was really, really impactful. And one of the sessions was around human factors, which now is called psychosocial, factors, human factors, where I actually managed to have this conversation with this individual, trying to unpack some of the stuff that she was dealing with while doing a bit of an ergonomic assessment. Anyhow, she revealed to me that she was on a bronchodilator for her asthma, or this tightness that she was feeling in her chest continuously. And I went, look, I'm not a medical profession here, but based on my observations of your work environment, your posture, the amount of stress, blah, 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 blah. We unpacked those human factors. I said, what about every hour that you just do these couple of stretches around your neck, your shoulders, okay? Do you know that over a period of 2 weeks, okay, she noticed incredible improvements, so much so that she didn't have to take her bronchodilator.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, but again, it's 20 years ago, all right? And it doesn't surprise us, because when you think about holding this position, kyphotic position, the weight of your head, on your neck, and the pressure on your, trapezius and your deltoid. Exactly. So she then went and saw a doctor and said, hey, doc, this is what's happened at work. I did this assessment and blah, blah, blah. And the doctor just sat there dumbfounded to think, geez, yeah, of course that's going to impact on you. And by the way, you're probably not an asthmatic. And I've simplified that process, But the outcome is, yeah, that as a muscle, your heart, okay, if you're not looking after it, then yeah, it's going to beat too many times. And like any other pump, you know, in your body and or in, you know, in your car or in any other piece of equipment that as a bloke you use or as a, you know, as a sister that you use or other, that it's going to fatigue and you're going to have to replace it. And you know what? That you can do something about that.
Yeah. And I think too, and I, you know, like, I mean, it's funny that you say that. I used to be a personal fitness trainer years ago. So the whole mind-body connection has always been huge for me.
Yeah.
And so, you know, after brain trauma, you know, recovering from that, and like I couldn't walk, you know, my nervous system had just, my body basically had shut down. My mind was awesome, but my body was a bit.
Well, your mind was in a protective mechanism and was shutting down the rest of the organs because for all intents and purposes, they were redundant.
Yeah. And so I wasn't able to walk. I couldn't brush my teeth. I couldn't do anything. I had no balance. And just like, and so I was, you know, was trying all these different things. Doctors were just labeling me with all different kinds of things. Nothing was working. And I kept relapsing for nearly a whole year. Just trying to figure it out. And I was having really serious reactions to medication because I've never really been a medication person, never taken it.
Same.
So my body wasn't used to it.
Correct.
And so I was just lucky that through my kinesiologist, that I found this lady over east in Victoria who was able to help me. And it's been sheer neuroplasticity that has worked. And it was, you know, a lot of self-compassion, which, you know, I was always into like helping others with self-compassion big time, not so much me. You know, and so, you know, a lot of self-compassion, a lot of being able to just being still with my body and just to the point where I thought nothing, which I never thought that would happen at that time because my, you know,
and overactive head and that's powerful, Mandy, for sure.
It is. So it's really, really cool. So having those tools and even being able to sit still with my heart, because when you are panicking, right, you become scared of your heart rate and you're terrified of your heart.
You do.
So just like being able to be really gentle and sit with your heart and I remember, you know, telling others when I was recovering about it and, you know, them like thinking, a bit woo-woo, and I said, you know what, I don't give a shit, this is working for me and I'm not surprised. I've always been into sort of more alternative ways, and so and so I totally get what you're saying, especially with the heart, because if you can be kinder to your heart, right, and sit there and make friends with your heart, it's a whole new world, right?
I'm going to use that this week, if I may. Make friends with your heart. I think that needs to be the next campaign. And you heard it here first. Mandy Gibbons, you're labeling that. You're absolutely taking that to market. You know, make friends with your heart, boy, oh boy, because you are absolutely correct. So going back to that perfectionism, all right. So if you're constantly striving towards perfectionism, of course you're not going to be kind to yourself. Because at what level do you measure perfection? You know, and what is that measure? You know, as I said beforehand, if you get, you know, I only scored 95, it's a high distinction in my last unit in my master's degree, and I should have gotten 100. Well, okay, but what's that 5%? That 5% is out of your control. Okay, so if anything, think about that when we talk about loci of control, which we haven't today per se, because there's a lot of stuff we can and obviously can't talk because of the time that we have, but the locus of control. So back to anxiety, back to negative, positive and or neutral. Okay, you can sit there with your anxiety neutral state and you can control it, contain it. Okay, same thing with perfection, same thing with being kind. You can be uber kind to the point where it can actually be detrimental. Where you aren't being kind to yourself, as you've mentioned, you give so much of that you get home after, you know, providing support, clinical, therapy, whatever your discipline is in the medico-allied health space, that you get home and you're friggin' exhausted. You flop on the bed and you don't have time for anything else, anyone else, because you've given so much. And then at what point do you go, hey, enough's enough?
And if it's I'm like a massive fan of self-compassion. I have like the biggest, it's so funny. Even my friends said to me, you're one of the most compassionate people I know, Mandy, and you have taught us so much about self-compassion. How are you not giving it more to yourself? And I said, well, now I am. And it's just the last few years, it's just been the amount of self-compassion I've given myself and how much I deeply love and care about myself is just.
Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Without being, without being selfish, without going, hey, selfish is for me, it's a negative term, negative connotations, but it is a really strong term. Be self. Forget ish. Just be self. Just be self. And I've just written, by the way, and you can't see it because I need to scroll it so I don't forget it. Be kind to your heart. This is Mandy. Mandy, you said this, all right? Okay. I'm going to quote you this week.
That's okay. Go for it.
And I'm going to, attribute the "be kind to your heart" to Mandy Gibbons. And just be self. Just be self. And as part of that, again, and I say this to women in particular, be comfortable to say no. And not have to give an explanation. And I do say this to guys. So again, I don't work with women and provide support too. But the guys just say, hey, say no. You don't. If you haven't got the time, the energy, as I do at times, I don't have the energy to take that call. If I see a call coming in from and I respectfully from one of the the guys I'm coaching or mentoring, if I'm not in the right headspace to be able to take that call and give kindness and give support and give two of these, I'm not useful. I may actually cause a certain level of added anxiety or other into that person's life, and I don't want to do that. So being able to be kind to your heart, be kind to yourself. That's cool. I like that.
And it helps you set boundaries too, right? When you're super clear on where you're at with all of that.
Very much so.
I call it inner resilience, because I'm a resilience coach, so that's what we focus on. But it's very much about when you come from that place, you know when to say no because you feel it in here. Like you're so much more conscious of your body.
You're powerful and you're empowered. And by doing so, you're actually empowering others to be able to go, hey, no, I don't need to do this. Or, I do want to do this. And, again, anxiety, I'm feeling anxious. Well, great. You're feeling anxious. Well, let's do something about that where you can actually channel that into a positive way for yourself or for your partner or if your family or your broader community, definitely don't live in fear or live in in a community where you don't feel like you contribute. And then I then take that to suicide, and that's where unfortunately some people find themselves that they just can't cope with the pain anymore. That's what we're dealing with when people are in an incredible amount of pain, that the act of suicide will release or enable them to step out of pain. The unfortunate thing, it's permanent, and we don't want to lose any more people. We know we can be preemptive. We can be preventative. We can be proactive. We don't want to be reactive and or provide support to families who have lost loved ones through suicide. We need to move it from that side of the conversation to that side. And that's what we're doing.
And that's why love seeing what you've been doing on LinkedIn and stuff like that, and just thought, wow, I really want to, bring him on and have a chat to him, because when you can just tell someone's kind of got the energy, and you can tell how passionate they are. And I was thinking, there's a story behind this. I've got to find it out. I've got to bring him on.
Well, really appreciate the opportunity, Mandy, and dare I say we could chat for hours upon end, because there's a whole bunch of years of stories there. And again, if I may just leave a little thought, and that was, again, I reflected on it after finishing some water training this morning, some water therapy.
Yeah.
There was this lovely teacher teaching fathers to support their kids, in water. So it was a father-child swimming session at the pool. And I just walked past and I stopped and I said to myself, Mo, you've also been a swim teacher. Yeah. You've also been able to take some of these lilies from a sense of safety, security, etc., and build that trust from that pool to the diving pool within a week period.
Yeah.
And in doing so, make it fun, and that you either directly or indirectly impacted positively on that person's life.
Yeah.
And how empowering is that as a teacher?
Yes.
And there are some amazing teachers out there, and I've had some amazing teachers, some amazing coaches, some amazing mentors. And just the other day, an old schoolmate of mine who made a comment on one of my posts, and he said, Mo, I hope that you take time to consider, what you've given, and in that, be it directly or indirectly to people in their lives. And I don't do what I do for that external gratification, although I'm humbled when I do receive it. Yeah. I do it because, as you are, you're kind, you're compassionate, and you can see that by providing that level of support, and it could be just a kind word, or, as I said, a gesture to help someone pull their trolley across a, and sand ditch or whatever it is, or that it's just an act of kindness. And more of those, be it structural or just, out of the blue that you're doing it, is incredibly powerful. And it makes you feel so much better. And you look at the sunshine again and the sunset, and you think, another day, I'm gonna do it again tomorrow in one way or another. So, Mandy, I really appreciate your kindness in allowing us this time together. It's been awesome. It really has. So thank you for that. And hopefully our conversation, if people are listening to it, and I'll definitely share it to my network, it can give some time for people to reflect on some of those messages to which we spoke to this afternoon.
And if people want to be able to get hold of you, Mo, I can put your LinkedIn links below. Yeah,
more than happy to.
Specific you'd love me to send people to, or?
Yeah, no, look, the LinkedIn, absolutely. And if they reference, heard you on the podcast with Mandy, or I've got some ideas, but it has to be anchored to you, Mandy, and to the conversation, this podcast, so that we can, again, circle back and say thank you. Thanks for making it happen today.
Oh, that's so nice. I'm so stoked. I feel like we're going to have a lot more conversations. This is good.
I'm sure we will. So on that note, we say adios. Thank you muchly.
See you later, everyone. Thanks for being on board.
Hey, beautiful man. If you're going through stress, need insight, direction to lighten the load, brother, and support during these challenging times, reach out to me. It's no secret that there are so many men suffering at the moment, amazing men, and they're so keen to get help, but don't know what that looks like. So I've created a 6-week one-to-one resilience coaching package for men with one-to-one coaching calls and support via Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp in between calls to help put yourself back in the driver's seat of life. And there's a strong level of trust that goes hand in hand with walking by someone's side during their challenges and their celebrations too. And that's what I'm here for, brother. So message me and let's find your path to true resilience.